Now, the greatest radio shows of all time.
Suspense.
The Shadow Node.
Washington calling David Harding, counter-spy.
Classic radio theater.
The Great Gildersleeve. Fibber McGee and Molly.
Dragnet. Gunsmoke.
The Lone Ranger.
Now, step back into our time machine with your host, Wyatt Cox.
Good evening, friends of the Inner Sanctum.
Western adventure this hour, Sam Buffington in the short-run series that's really good, Luke, Slaughter of Tombstone. This episode, entitled Worth Its Salt, was originally broadcast Sunday afternoon, May 4th, 1958.
Slaughter's my name, Luke Slaughter. Cattle's my business. It's a tough business. It's big business. I've got a big stake in it. And there's no man west of the Rio Grande big enough to take it from me.
Luke Slaughter of Tombstone. Luke Slaughter of Tombstone, Civil War cavalryman turned Arizona cattleman. Across the territory, from Yuma to Fort Defiance, from Flagstaff to the Huachucas, and below the border through Chihuahua and Sonora, his name was respected or feared, depending on which side of the law you were on. Man of vision, man of legend, Luke Slaughter of Tombstone.
I'm Irma Dutro, color stylist for O'Brien Paints. Our musical theme hardly needs introduction. Just as the many instruments blend into this symphony, so O'Brien blends many pigments into the newest fashion-right colors for your home, giving more color per color. We have selected O'Brien's exciting new colors of the year after consulting many leading decorators and home furnishings experts of the country. And because all these colors are decorator approved, you are assured of rich, authentic new colors for your own home. Your nearest O'Brien paint dealer, listed in the yellow pages of your phone book, has a free color chip folder for you. He'll help you select O'Brien paints in these exclusive new colors of the year for both inside and outside your home. Stop in and see him soon.
And now, Luke Slaughter of Tombstone.
Ed Craig came to Tombstone from the east, a little after I settled here. Ed was well fixed, didn't have to scratch out a living like most of us. And in his quiet, likable manner, he soon proved to be the kind of man Arizona needed.
Yes, I think I can do some good for the territory in Washington, if the voters want to send me there.
You certainly can, Ed. Our delegate ought to be a much stronger man than some of the ones we've sent.
Yeah, I got all the respect in the world for Mr. Craig, Luke. But what's the sense of electing a good man to the United States Congress when he don't even have a vote after he gets there?
He'll have a vote when Arizona becomes a state. Meanwhile, we need a delegate who can make the federal government understand our needs and our future.
Yeah, Paul Gallagher's against statehood. He says if we got it, we'd be taxed out of our boots. The way it is now, he says, we're getting a free ride.
It seems to me Paul Gallagher's against progress. I'm afraid the main reason he's running against me is to get that free ride to Washington and back every year.
That's about the size of it. And he doesn't need the free part any more than you do. He's made a wad of money out of his saloon and his gambling room.
I wouldn't know about that. All I know is that he bellowed like a branded longhorn about half the gambling license fees going into the school fund.
Bellowed like a branded longhorn. Mr. Craig, you're even starting to talk something like a Westerner.
He thinks like an American, Wichita, and that's the kind of man Arizona needs for its delegate.
Remember, I still have to be elected.
You will be.
You know, I have a personal reason for wanting to be in Washington. My little girl goes to school in Baltimore.
Oh, you got a sprout? I didn't know that.
Show Wichita the picture in your watch, Ed.
Well, here it is.
Why, she ain't no sprout. She's a growed-up young lady. And purty as a spotted puppy riding through a snowstorm in a little red wagon.
Thanks, Wichita. Well, I've got to be getting along, Luke. Thanks for your confidence.
Well, I wish you wouldn't hurry, Ed.
I have an appointment over at Gallagher's Saloon. I'm, buying a gold mine.
What?
That's right. An old prospector named Van Ling wants to sell his claim. Says it's more fun discovering gold than working to get it out of the ground.
Now, wait a minute, Ed. I've never heard of any worthwhile gold ore in these parts.
Oh?
The silver. Scheiflin's strike proved that, but well, I'd never gamble on gold.
Well, I'd never gamble on no more silver. I figure old Scheiflin found the only lode in the Mule Mountains.
Well, Van Ling took me out to his claim, and I watched him take the samples. They assayed high enough to be worth taking a chance.
Well, it's your money, Ed. But you're no more a mining expert than I am.
I know. I just figure I can put some men to work. And if the vein's as rich as it seems to be, their families will be comfortable for life.
You mean you're gonna hire on a profit-sharing basis?
Uh-huh. I've got as much money as I need. And I hope what the men get, they'll sort of invest back in Arizona.
What cash money wages you paying?
Exactly what Luke pays you, Wichita. And if you quit him to work for me, you might not get your ranch job back if the claim peters out.
Oh, I wasn't asking for no different job. I know when I'm well off, when I'm a-setting on a horse.
Just don't get so wrapped up in helping people that you forget to campaign, Ed. Because you can really help them when you're Arizona's delegate to Congress.
4,800, 4,900, 5,000. That's the correct amount, Mr. Craig, and you got yourself a gold mine.
Fine, Mr. Van Ling. The papers seem to be in order, and I'll take care of filing the transfer.
That's a lot of cash money to be carrying around Tombstone, Van. Care to leave it in my safe overnight?
Well, now, I might just do that, Mr. Gallagher. Where at is the safe?
In my office. Well, Craig, this will be an interesting experience for you.
I think so. I think it'll be a profitable one.
Well, if it is, maybe you'll quit harping on statehood for the territory. Government would take it all away in taxes.
Statehood's a few years away, Mr. Gallagher. No matter which one of us goes to Washington.
Your ideas are too fancy for us out here, Craig. Gotta have a Westerner to represent the West.
We'll see what the people decide.
Yeah, that we will.
And no hard feelings either way. Mr. Van Ling, if you change your mind about joining the mine crew, just look me up.
It's pretty for certain I won't.
Well, keep in touch anyway. Remember, you'll get a share of the profits.
Come along to my office, old-timer.
All right.
Give you a receipt. Electioneer if you want it, Craig, even if this is my place.
I'll let the electioneering go until I round up some miners.
Hold it. Now, go ahead. It's worth laughing at.
Share the profits. We put it over on him real smart like, eh, Mr. Gallagher?
That wasn't hard. Give me the money, Van.
I get 300 of it, remember?
That's right. 100 now and 200 when I know you're in Yuma.
I'd kind of like to stay around and watch the fun.
Your mouth's too big, old-timer.
Well,
I wouldn't want Craig to find out he actually bought that claim from me.
Well, I'd never breathe a word, and you fix the papers yourself.
You're going to Yuma. By the time you get there, it'll be time to start spreading the word that Mr. Edward Craig, candidate for delegate from the territory of Arizona, is pouring a fortune into a salted gold mine.
I bet you win that election, Mr. Gallagher.
Safest bet you'll ever make. When the people find out how little Craig knows about the West, they'll laugh him right out of Arizona.
The claim didn't look like much to me. There were traces of gold in the sandstone where old Van Ling had roughed out the start of a mine shaft, but they were shallow deposits, and they disappeared when Craig's men got to tunneling a real shaft. The crew worked with picks and shovels and drew their pay regularly. Then at last the tracks and mine carts and heavy ore-crushing equipment arrived in Benson by rail, and the whole mine force went down to mule-freighted back to Tombstone. I persuaded Ed to make a trip to the mine with Wichita and me while the men weren't around.
We'll make a lot more progress when we get the machinery in, Luke.
Well, you'll dig deeper, faster, that's sure.
Ain't no machinery been invented that'll put gold in the ground where there ain't none.
I don't want to put it in. I want to get it out.
Do you mind my asking how much this equipment's setting you back, Ed?
About 10,000. Another couple thousand to ship it.
Then with your payroll, you're close to 20,000 in the hole.
I think it's a sound investment. Now, you mind me asking you something, Luke?
Nope. You're going to ask me to keep my nose out of your personal business.
Not at all. I'm just curious about that old muzzle-loading rifle.
Well, I've been studying up on gold. This antique gun's for a little experiment I want to make. Whoa. Whoa there, fella.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mary's Pride mine. You got a sign and a tunnel, anyway.
I named it after my daughter. She'll be proud as punch when I telegraph her we've hit high-grade ore.
Well, I've got some high-grade gold nuggets here, Ed.
Hmm?
I'm going to put a charge of powder in this old blunderbuss, and tamp the wadding, and use a nugget for a bullet, and fire into the rock near the shaft opening. Now we'll repeat the experiment.
Well, what kind of nonsense is this, Luke?
You better sort of hope it is nonsense, Mr. Craig.
Here goes another one. Now, let's take a look at the sandstone. Well, how about it, Ed? Look like the place where Van Ling chipped off the samples?
Why, yes. That's just the way the gold flakes were distributed. Well, Luke, I bought a salted mine, didn't I?
I'm afraid you did, Ed. You fire soft gold into soft rock, and it looks for all the world like the real thing.
You was a patsy for one of the scummiest tricks a Westerner can play on an Easterner, Mr. Craig.
When this gets out, I'm going to shape up as a fine candidate to represent the people of the West.
That may have been what someone was thinking when you fell for the trick. And I doubt if old Van Ling is much interested in politics.
In a moment, Luke Slaughter of Tombstone returns.
May 4th, 1958, Luke Slaughter of Tombstone here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. In the late 50s, CBS still had contractual obligations that they were required to provide a lot of programming. And CBS, instead of doing music programming, produced a number of great shows, and this was one of them. The only problem with Luke Slaughter of Tombstone is that it never got the clearance required for the show to gain any kind of traction. It was kind of like Frontier Gentleman with John Dehner. It did not gain good traction, and it didn't stay around. It had better clearance than Frontier Gentleman, than Luke Slaughter of Tombstone did, but it just didn't gain traction. So there were only like 20 episodes of the show produced. But it was a good one. And had they been able to get more clearance so they could get more listeners and then advertisers, it probably would have lasted longer. May 4th, 1958, Luke Slaughter of Tombstone here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox.
And now, Act Two of William N. Robeson's production of Luke Slaughter of Tombstone.
Ed Craig had bought a salted gold mine. There wasn't any doubt about it. And if word got out, ridicule was going to ruin his chance of beating Paul Gallagher in the election for territorial delegate to the United States Congress.
As I see it, gentlemen, there's only one thing I can do.
Close up the mine, huh?
No, Wichita. Keep digging. My men have their families in Tombstone. Some of them have brought them a long way to settle here. If people think I'm a fool, they'll just have to think it. But I'm not going to shut down until I find something else for the men to do.
Can you afford it, Ed?
I can, for a while anyway. And just because the top stratum was salted is no proof there isn't pay dirt further in.
Mr. Craig, I wouldn't trade a spavin broomtail range mustang for this whole dang rock pile. And neither would anybody else in their right senses.
Wichita. Ed, we both admire you, and we both wish you all the luck in the world.
Oh, of course we do. I never said I didn't wish you luck. But you're sure gonna need it.
Election day was getting close, and Ed Craig's chances looked worse and worse. Out here, the weak and the foolish don't survive long. And in the eyes of the hard-working settlers, Ed looked more than a little foolish. Money doesn't come easy to our people. They don't like to see a man throw it away, especially when they don't understand his motives. And Paul Gallagher slandered those motives, even to the men who were benefiting from them.
Howdy there, Mr. Rawlinson.
Howdy.
What'll it be?
Whiskey, I guess.
Oh, put your money away, my friend.
Huh?
This is on the house.
Well, it's very nice of you, Mr. Gallagher.
Still working for Craig at the Mary's Pride?
That's right.
But maybe not for long, huh?
I don't know. We sure ain't finding pay dirt, but Craig keeps handing over our wages.
Guess those wages aren't quite as much as you hoped to make on the deal.
Well, no, but if we make a strike, we're all going to share in the profits.
That Craig is a fast talker. But I'll bet you wouldn't have moved your family down from Globe if you'd known it was for just a few weeks' poor pay.
Pardon me for interrupting. It's been a few months, and it's mighty good pay.
Well, Slaughter, are private conversations between my customers and me any concern of yours?
When they're derogatory to one of the finest men in the territory, yes.
Mr. Slaughter and Mr. Craig's nice enough, but we were led to believe we were going to make a lot of money.
I'd bet you're making more now than you've ever made in your life.
How long's it going to last, Slaughter? When the election's over, Craig will shut up that mine like it was a pest house.
What makes you think so?
Because Craig's not a complete fool. He got stuck with a salted mine. He figured he'd hide it under a big gesture. A gesture that might even get him elected. Then when he got to Washington, he'd make it up in graft.
Got any more to say, Gallagher?
Only that Arizona folks aren't stupid enough to be taken in by an Eastern swindler.
I dare you to say that again. Any place except in your own miserable gambling house.
You heard me this time. No need to chew my cabbage twice.
You better come with me, Rawlinson.
Well, as long as Mr. Gallagher's setting up drinks.
Have it your own way. But remember who's setting up the food for your kids.
Luke, I don't see what good we're doing, Mr. Craig, by coming out to the mine when he ain't even here.
We may be doing a lot of good.
Yeah, but the election's day after tomorrow, and the way people are talking, he ain't got a Chinaman's chance to win.
Craig knows that too, Wichita. But he wouldn't be nearly as disappointed over losing as he would be to find his miners have let him down.
Yeah, appears they ain't doing much mining today. Looks more like they're having themselves a sociable.
Well, I'll be... Gallagher's talking to him.
Yeah.
Whoa, whoa.
Whoa.
Rawlinson thought I'd be doing you men a favor if I came out and told you what Craig is trying to pull. As for myself, I don't believe he got the assayed samples from this claim at all. I don't believe he paid old Van Ling any $5,000. I think the whole thing was a planned swindle to get him to Washington and to make you pay taxes to a state and a federal government.
I told you not to call Craig a swindler again, Gallagher.
Now, wait.
Wait for what? I'll take that gun, Gallagher. And now I'll take you. Now, boys, as you know, Mr. Craig is campaigning in Prescott. He'll be back for the election, and it doesn't look like he can win.
Yeah.
Craig isn't a mining expert. He fell for a salted claim. I told him so weeks ago, and I guess all Arizona knows it now. But he kept all of you working because he felt a responsibility to you and your families. And for some strange reason, because he still has faith in this mine. Maybe that faith boils down to faith in the West. and the men who want to live here. Now, what do you say we forget about the election, and when Ed Craig comes home, we'll show him the longest mine tunnel he ever saw, whether there's gold in it or not. I'm gonna dig. Wichita's gonna dig. How about the rest of you?
From May 4th, 1958, Luke, Slaughter of Tombstone. Here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, the conclusion follows these important messages from your favorite radio station. For a very long time, you've heard me talk about My Pillow, and of course the My Pillow products are fascinating. My Slippers, which are on special right now, all of the sheets and the pillows and the pillowcases, and all the wonderful things. But did you know that American entrepreneurs have gotten together with Mike Liddell to form My Store, a whole line of products made by American entrepreneurs, including health products, garden and patio, food and drink. If you're a coffee drinker, check out some of the coffees they have there. Beauty, bath products, personal care, things for your pets. Check out mystore.com. That is mystore.com. And of course, when you use my promo code, which is Wyatt, that's WYATT, you can save yourself a good bit of money on anything there. Check out mystore.com, promo code Wyatt. I'm Wyatt Cox. You're listening to Classic Radio Theater on your favorite station. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, coming up with the conclusion of this week's episode. But now the conclusion of Luke, Slaughter of Tombstone, May 4th, 1958.
Keep those ore cars coming back, men. We'll keep them filled up.
That was a pretty enticing speech you made, Luke. When I started swinging this pick, I almost enjoyed it. But now the rock's getting awful hard.
Keep swinging anyway.
Yeah, but it's so doggone... Oh, now it's soft.
Where?
Right here. Look. You see? Soft and kind of lightish colored.
Wichita, get that light in closer.
There.
This is silver.
Silver?
Silver. And it looks like as clean a vein as was ever found in the West. Let's stop in at Gallagher's, man.
Yeah, let's go to Gallagher.
Gallagher, we're having a little celebration. Thought you might want to set up a few rounds.
You keep out of here, Slaughter, unless you want a warrant for battery slapped on you.
Yeah, battery is right. You look like you was run over by a stagecoach.
You get out, too. All of you, get out. I don't need your votes.
Every vote counts, Gallagher. Sure you don't want to set the boys up?
I told you to get out.
There's one thing I'd like to settle first. You've been telling these men that Van Ling didn't get $5,000 from Craig for his mine claim. What makes you think that?
Well, how should I know what Craig paid him?
The transaction took place in your establishment.
I don't remember everything that goes on here.
A short memory's a pretty handy thing. I guess you wouldn't remember transferring the claim to Van Ling a month before he sold it to Craig.
No, I don't.
Do you know enough about territorial government to realize that all mining claim records are filed at Prescott? And are you keeping close enough track of the election to realize that Ed Craig has been campaigning up there?
Look, Slaughter, if I gave away a worthless claim and Craig was foolish enough to buy it, it still doesn't involve me.
No, of course it don't. Van Ling's the one who gets a hunk of the profit.
Well, did Craig give that poor old coot the same story he gave these men?
You ought to know. The only thing you don't know is that we struck silver at the Mary's Pride today.
What?
That's right, Gallagher. As rich a load as Ed Shiflin's tombstone strike. Maybe richer.
No, wait a minute. That was my claim. I only transferred it to Van Lynn, so he could...
Salt it and sell it. Well, boys, we better get to the telegraph office. There's plenty of time before election to let the whole territory know that Ed Craig has made $1 million strike. And I'll telegraph Craig not to bother looking up any claim records. Gallagher's told us everything we need to know.
Fellow citizens of Arizona, there are times when words just can't seem to... Please try to tell them for me, Luke.
I think they'd rather tell you, Ed. Boys, how do we feel about our new delegate to the Congress of the United States?
Luke Slaughter of Tombstone, starring Sam Buffington, was written by Fran Van Hardesveld and directed by William N. Robeson. Editorial supervision by Tom Hanley. Supporting Mr. Buffington were Joe DeSantis, Jack Moyles, Barney Phillips, and Junius Matthews. Next week at this time, we return with...
Slaughter's the name. Luke Slaughter. When we meet up again, you can call me that. Luke Slaughter.
May 4th, 1958, Luke Slaughter of Tombstone on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Now on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, The Wind-Up, Part 5 of the 5-part Yours Truly Johnny Dollar story, The Callicles Matter, as it was originally broadcast May 4th, 1956.
From Hollywood, it's time now for...
Johnny Dollar.
David Parsons, did you read the morning paper?
Yep.
It's spread all over them. My son missing. I've had calls from New York all morning long. The business merger's jeopardized, and it's your doing.
Anything else to say?
When I finish with you and your liability company, there won't be enough left to burn for junk.
Mr. Parsons, before you shoot off any more steam, do you want me to give the papers the other half of the story? The one about you arranging for people to impersonate your son and his wife?
Are you threatening me?
I guess I am.
Why, you...
Bye.
Tonight and every weekday night, Bob Bailey in the transcribed adventures of the man with the action-packed expense account, America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to the Eastern Casualty and Trust Company, Boston, Massachusetts. The following is an accounting of expenditures during my investigation of the Callicles Matter. Item 11, 10 cents, one newspaper. I lied to Parsons about seeing the paper. I hadn't seen it at all. But I could guess what had happened when they got hold of the story that a prominent broker had been missing some 14 days. It was all there, spread over the front page. I waited a couple of hours before I took old man Parsons on again.
You think you're pretty smart, don't you?
You should have given this matter to the police in the first place.
I gave it to a detective agency. And what do you mean by firing them?
Oh, they were just spending your money.
And you're losing it for me with all this in the paper.
I'm still trying to find your son, Mr. Parsons, remember?
You aren't going to find him here.
Something's come up. Maybe you can explain it. The DA's office impounded the books yesterday. $5,000 was withdrawn from your son's personal account.
What do I have to explain about that?
Wait. It was taken out the morning he disappeared. Do you have any idea why he'd withdraw a sum of money that size?
No. Do you?
Sure. Somebody could have been standing in back of him with a gun, threatening to blow his head off. He might have had a date to go to a wedding and needed some tip money. What can you add?
You're getting mad, Dollar. Go find your answers someplace else.
You don't care if he's ever located, do you?
Dollar, let me tell you something. My son means that to me. No more. He's never had brains enough or energy enough to do anything by himself. I do everything, always have. The only reason I want him back is to effect the merger with Little and Tennyson. You knew that right away.
I suppose so. I just wanted to hear it said to believe it.
Well, now you've heard me say it. You know, one reason why I always run the show, Dollar. My face never looks like yours over anything.
I got out of there fast. I went downtown with a tall policeman named Jerry Engel to interview a bank teller.
I'm Sergeant Engel. It's Mr. Dollar.
Oh, yes, you phoned me. It's about Mr. Parsons.
You took care of him when he came in here last Tuesday, a week ago, is that right?
I handled the withdrawal, yes.
We'd like to see the slip on that, please.
Yes, I looked it up. I have it ready for you.
Have you known Mr. Parsons very long?
Well, I don't know him well, really.
Look at this picture. This man is the same who signed the withdrawal slip last Tuesday morning?
Yes, that's Mr. Parsons.
Okay. Tell us what happened.
Well, he just came up to the cage and handed me the withdrawal slip, that's all.
I see. Weren't you a little surprised when he made out a withdrawal slip for $5,000? That's a lot of money.
Well, maybe I was a little surprised, but Mr. Parsons has withdrawn large sums from his personal account several times. I always assumed it was some sort of speculation where he needed cash on hand.
When he came up to the cage to you, what exactly did he say?
Oh, just good morning or something like that, and then, will you please take care of this?
Didn't he stipulate how he wanted the money?
Oh, yes, he did say that. I'm sorry. He took it mostly in hundreds and fifties.
Any of these bills happen to be recorded?
No, Sergeant.
Anything else you can remember about the transaction that might help?
Sorry, nothing. Well, maybe.
Yeah?
Well, you both know the kind of business Mr. Parsons is in. I mean, well, it seems like a hurried sort of business. Always phone calls, rushing, and so on. He was always like that, it seemed to me. He'd come in here, do what he had to do, and rush out. Very brisk, you know. But that morning, he didn't seem in a hurry at all when he left. I mean, I had the distinct feeling that Mr. Parsons didn't particularly care in what direction he went.
A recheck with Mrs. Parsons and the house servants established that Parsons had not left the house with the described money bag. The police went to work on that angle, trying to find out where he had purchased it. A supplementary bulletin went out with the news about the bag. The district attorney's men were trying to find out if he was involved with another woman, and if so, who. Parsons was reported to be in Toledo, Detroit, the Virgin Islands, and Boston. All the reports were untrue.
Yeah, officer, that's him. That's the guy who was in here that night.
You sure?
Well, I'm positive that's his picture.
Was he with anybody?
No, he was all alone. He sat over there on that stool.
How long was he here?
Oh, I was here we closed the joint.
Did you happen to see where he went from here?
No.
And what kind of shape was he in? Drunk?
No, he was real sober and quiet. Drank all night, but he seemed to hold the stuff okay.
Did you talk to him at all?
No, just took his order for drinks. He didn't seem to want to talk to anybody.
I see.
Did you happen to notice if anybody who was in here went over and talked to him?
I think a couple of people tried. You know, you get that sort of thing in a joint like this, but he didn't say much to any of them, so they just left him alone.
He just sat alone and drank?
No, he was making a phone call all the time. He was here, a long-distance call from the booth over there. He sat at the end of the bar so he could hear the phone ring.
How do you know he was making a long-distance call?
Well, he handed me a 20 once and asked me to change it to quarters for him. All the quarters I had.
About what time was this?
Oh, I don't know exactly, but it took him 2 or 3 hours anyway.
Do you know if he ever completed his call?
He poured a lot of dough into the phone. I guess he did, finally.
Did he have anything with him while he was here?
What do you mean?
Was he carrying a little black bag, maybe?
No, nothing but his overcoat. Yeah.
What?
He did say something to me at that. He asked me if I knew Callicles.
Callicles?
Yes, Sergeant. He was about 3 bourbons along by then.
Mean anything?
I've heard about that before, Jerry. Callicles was a Greek. Parsons quoted him to his doctor once. Something about a man breaking through and shaking off his chains. A pretty piece of poetry.
Poet? I thought he was a bookie. Oh, excuse me.
Well, Jerry, one thing for sure.
Yeah, what?
We know he was alive that night. Jerry Engel started a check with the telephone company. Their records disclosed that David Parsons had placed a call from the pay booth in the bar on the night in question. It had been a person-to-person call to a Kenneth Temple in San Francisco. We tried to place a call to the same number, but there was no answer. We waited another 2 hours trying to complete the call, and the operators were still trying when we drove out to the Parsons residence once more. Mrs. Parsons gave us a cool greeting.
I certainly don't appreciate any of this. You're responsible, Mr. Dollar, for all this publicity.
We don't have to go into that, Mrs. Parsons. We need your help now.
We found out that your husband called a man named Kenneth Temple in San Francisco the night he disappeared.
Oh?
That name, Kenneth Temple, does it mean anything to you?
No, I've never heard it before.
Mr. Parsons never mentioned it to you?
Well, I can't say for certain, but it's not familiar to me at the moment.
Have you ever been to San Francisco?
Yes.
When?
Twice. Going to and coming back from Hawaii 2 years ago.
Has Mr. Parsons ever been in San Francisco?
He was on the same trip.
This name, Temple, maybe it was someone you met while you were there.
No, I don't recall meeting anyone there at all. Sergeant.
Yes?
All this has been quite upsetting, quite nerve-wracking, really. I don't know what progress you people are making, but I do wish it would all be handled soon. Excuse me, please.
Sure. Well, this isn't getting us very far.
I don't get it.
Hello? Who? Oh, yes, operator. Just a moment. It's for you, Sergeant.
Oh, thanks. Probably San Francisco operator. Thank you. This is Sergeant Engel. Yes? Oh, hello, Mr. Temple. This is Sergeant Engel, Missing Persons Division, Los Angeles Police. We're trying to locate a man named David Parsons. Huh? All right. He's there now. He's going to put him on.
David? Well, let me talk to him.
Just a minute. That an extension?
Oh, yes. Please.
I'll get it.
Let me talk.
Hold it a minute. Mr. Parsons? I've been pretty worried about you. Yes? Yes, she's all right. She's right here.
Okay, Mrs. Parsons. Here, take it.
David?
How are you?
Oh, it's so good to hear your voice, David. When are you coming home? Your father and I have been...
I read about it in the papers. Now, I want you to listen to me, Dorothy. Dad's going to ask you, so listen.
But...
Listen to me.
I'm listening, David.
Do you remember all the times that I've asked you to talk to me? The times during these years when I've wanted companionship, warmth, a home that was lived in? Each time I asked for these things, you were always too busy, too taken up with things outside my life. Do you remember all that?
Oh, yes, David, I remember all that.
Well, this is the end of you and me.
But your father...
It's the end of Father and me, too, Dorothy. You tell him that. He probably won't believe it, but you tell him the merger's all his. He'll have to get another figurehead.
Oh, you'd be so angry.
Dorothy, what I'm trying to say is his anger doesn't worry me anymore.
Oh, what about me?
I never worried you.
But, David...
I'm going away. A long sea voyage with Temple. You don't remember him, but he was a sailor I used to talk to aboard ship when we went to Hawaii. He has a boat now. I'm shipping on it.
Well, when will you be back?
I won't be back.
David!
Now, will you put that police officer on?
Hello, Mr. Parsons.
Who's that?
My name's Johnny Dollar. I've been trying to find you for 2 weeks. I'm an insurance investigator.
Oh.
I found out quite a lot about you. I want to make sure I'm talking to the right man.
I won't answer a lot of questions.
Just one. It's not even a question. Callicles.
Oh.
Mean anything?
I don't know who you are. I didn't even get your name, but you did find out. If there were a man who had sufficient force, he would shake off and break through and escape from all this. He would trample underfoot all our formulas and spells and charms, and all our laws which are against nature. The slave would rise in rebellion and be lord over us.
So far as the police were concerned, there was nothing more to do. So far as the insurance company's concerned, we'll have to sit on a $100,000 bond and hope that David Parsons will return to his life in Los Angeles when he gets whatever it is out of his system. Expense account total, $1,100.59. Remarks? Just Mrs. Parsons, to me. She asked why he never talked about this to her. I told her he did. No one ever listened. She didn't understand that either. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Now, here's our star to tell you about next week's intriguing story.
Next week, one of the most heartless, most vicious rackets an insurance investigator ever had to face. Join us, won't you? Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, starring Bob Bailey, is transcribed in Hollywood. Written by John Dawson, it is produced and directed by Jack Johnstone. Heard in this week's cast were Virginia Gregg, Harry Bartell, Lillian Baeff, Will Wright, Gene Bates, Carlton Young, Lawrence Dobkin, Bert Holland, Marvin Miller, and Herb Vigran. Musical supervision by Amerigo Marino. Be sure to join us on Monday night, same time and station, for another exciting story of yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Roy Rowan speaking.
May 4th, 1956, yours truly, Johnny Dollar on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. That's a problem with a lot of people who are from money as opposed to people who know money. People don't listen. That's a big issue. Thank you for tuning in to Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Visit my webpage, classicradio.stream, classicradio.stream. There you can stream our shows, learn about building a classic radio collection of your own. You can contact me there, find our social media links, and if you are so inclined, you can buy me a coffee. That buy me a coffee money goes for us to acquire additional classic radio collections to bring to you here on your favorite radio station or buy our podcasts. That's at classicradio.stream. Classicradio.stream. And we appreciate you very much for listening, whether it's over the air or by a podcast. It means a lot. Thank you for tuning in. Thank this station, support their advertisers, tell your friends the greatest radio shows of all time are right here at this spot on the dial. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite radio station.